Okay, everybody, Stephen Key here, and today we have something very special for you. A while back, we had an interview with the founder of Mighty Jaxx. We talked about licensing. We talked about creating some really great figurines, vinyls. I guess it's vinyls or all different types of lifestyle characters that people really love. But we have someone very special on. We have Bryan Tan, and your title is Chief Strategy Officer of Mighty Jaxx. Is that correct?
That is correct, Stephen. Thanks for the introduction.
All right, I'm glad I got that right. Okay, and the reason why we're talking today, and what's really important to myself and my audience, is learning about licensing. And you have quite a resume. You've been in the industry of licensing a lot of the major brands. Could you talk a little bit about yourself and what you've done in the last couple of years?
Sure, Stephen. I guess when I first started off in the toy industry, I co-founded this company called XM Studios, and that was about 7-8 years ago. And during that time, I came across these two brothers who were really good at creating and sculpting superheroes, but they didn't have any license. So they were just helping people repair their products or their figurines and statues. So they said, "Hey, Bryan, you seem to know a little bit about business. You've started businesses. You've managed to do M&As. Could you help us think of a business plan?" And I was a big fan of their work, and I've been collecting toys and figurines ever since I could save up my pocket money when I was young. And so I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And one of the things that we focused on was trying to get the most popular, I guess, pop culture licenses so that they can start to create work off those IPs. And I remember the very first IP that we wanted to get was from the Justice League, from the Warner Brothers. And it was difficult. Let me be honest about it, because when we were just a new company, we knocked on a lot of doors. We talked to video game companies, some I can't mention, but when we knocked on doors of Warner Brothers, they was like, "Oh, you guys don't have a track record. It's going to be difficult to just give you an IP. Maybe once you get some products out, we can have a chat again." So that was the first year of business, where we couldn't get any IP owners to give us any rights. So we decided to change the strategy a bit. This time, we kind of invested in creating prototypes of the figurines that we had dreamed of doing. So we started off with some Marvel superhero characters. That was during the time where the Marvel movies were just becoming popular. So we did a couple of Marvel characters like Iron Man, Spider-Man, and we did it as if it was, we poured our heart and soul into making those prototypes. So we did 2 to 3 of those prototypes, and we decided to set up a meeting with the Disney team. We lugged the huge, heavy statues over, and we set the whole thing up as if we were in Shark Tank, and we presented the products. And I think that was probably the key, because the first thing when people came in the room, they saw something on the table and they were like, "Wow, what is this?" And they were instantly sort of, I guess, interested in what we had to offer. And then from there, we naturally progressed in talking about having the licenses for the territories to do the products. And that started off. Once we got our hands on the Marvel license for Southeast Asia, the rest was history. We started just churning out all the products and all the superheroes. That's how I got started.
Yeah, I want everybody to understand this a little bit, because I got involved in I've been licensing my own ideas for a long, long time. And I became a Disney licensee. And I'm used to licensing my stuff out, but I became a manufacturer and I wanted to license these brands, IP in, these rights in, like you just talked about. And I remember they have some qualifications. You have to be in business and you have to show a track record. I mean, they're not going to license their brand to someone they don't even know or has no track record. So it's kind of difficult to do unless you're showing them something pretty unusual. So you must have shown them something they really liked.
Yeah, I think that was the angle. We showed them something that we thought was going to be a game changer in the industry. We've never seen high premium, high quality statues of that of those formats where people could switch out different parts and it will create a different story based on what parts do you interchange on the figurine itself. So then that caught their attention. And I think it helps, like you said, that we also started to show a little bit of the background that we've been doing a bit of work on a commercial side for Universal Studios and all that. So they say, okay, we'll give you guys a chance to try.
Okay. Now let's talk about Mighty Jaxx for just a minute, because we had Jackson on. He talked about his first licensing deal, how he drove out to California and was like, he told me the story. He couldn't really believe how he got the first deal. So your job, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, you're looking at those type of partnerships going forward. You're looking at what is the next thing to license. Is that correct? Is that what you're doing at Mighty Jaxx today?
That's right. So one of my key roles here is to sort of look at the trends and predict what we feel will be where the consumer trends will be interested in. It's almost as if we are spotting new IPs that we feel that's got potential. Okay. And then we sort of invest in them early on so that we get the products out before the shows even hit the ground.
Now, how do you do that? Now, let's talk about that for just a minute. You're trying to look ahead, look at the future, find those properties that people are going to want to purchase. How do you do that? How do you look for trends? Do you travel? Do you go to trade shows? Do you watch? Do they send you? I'm sure they send you early releases of what movies are going to be. But how do you do that? Explain to everybody.
Sure. There's a couple of I guess a lot of angles we look at, right? And like you said, one of them would be a lot of traveling, going to licensing shows, going to attend comic cons. And I guess when you're on the ground and you talk to people and you have coffee with various, whether it's collectors or fans or just industry peers, you start to get to form this pattern of what everybody's talking about, what they think would be the trend moving forward. So that's one side of it. And then within Mighty Jaxx itself, we have a process where we have this sort of a step-by-step process where we route through all IPs and ideas, and we do two types. The qualification process, where first of all, we look at things like the subscribe base, the views on the YouTube, and this gives us a hint of how popular they are. We rank them sort of by order of popularity, and then it goes to a soft internal kind of voting system where the sales guys, the commercial guys, the product guys, they will all chip in with the ideas on like, okay, on the market, there's a lot of products like this already for this IP. This is going to be tough for us to make. So we have all these different views from different disciplines of the industry chip in together. And then from there, we have an overall score. We say, okay, these are the shortlisted ones that we think works great. We send them and present them to Jackson, and Jackson says, all right, let's go. That's kind of like the whole process.
Okay, so you're getting input, you're on the ground, you're talking to people, going to things like Comic-Con, so you really see what's happening and you know your audience, but still there's a risk here, isn't there? And you're minimizing the risk a little bit with probably doing limited runs. And I want to talk about how do you determine that. But at the end of the day, you have minimum guarantees that you probably have to agree to and pay those companies, because that's how the game is played. So there's risk here, isn't there?
Yeah, there's well, I guess in a way, all businesses have risk, and like what they say, no pain, no gain. So the risk, like you said, is common. What we try to do is to mitigate the risk by, first of all, when there's an MG given to us, for example, let's just say if it's 100 grand, then what we do is that we take that MG, we do a reverse calculation of what does that translate to, how many products, how many SKUs we need to produce within the contractual period. So we kind of reverse work backwards and say, okay, this is the minimum number of designs and products we need to sell. And then we try to buffer and plan a little bit more so that we safeguard ourselves.
Okay. So that probably determines a little bit about your limited edition type of thing, right?
That's right.
Okay, because you do something really special is that, and a lot of people don't understand. Let me explain this. If you hold back the number, you know, it becomes real special. If you're only going to produce so many, it becomes has more value. So is that part of the equation when you're doing the math, determine how to pay back those minimum guarantees, saying, look, we're going to limit it to this much, put the value on it this much, and hopefully we sell. Is that how that works into that calculation as well?
Yeah, it's kind of like that, right? Just to go a little bit deeper into that, is that one very important, I guess, distinction between toys and collectibles for us is that collectibles needs to be, I guess, the scarcity model works. It's got to be limited edition. You got to feel like not everyone can get their hands on it. I think that's the attraction of the hunt to search for treasure. And to do that, there's various ways to do it. It could be, for example, we could limit the number of the production produced. So that's example, 500 pieces worldwide. Another way we could do it is that we could collaborate with the artists involved to create limited edition, say, signed postcards or signed artwork that is given out with maybe the first 200 purchases. So there are various ways we could kind of create that I guess, that limited feel. But it's very important, like you said, and what we want to really focus on is not how many limited edition stuff we sell, but we also focus on what is the secondary market value. Because yeah, because it's almost as if that you could sell 200 or 300 only, and you could make less profit, but that's fine. If those 200-300 on the secondary market, everyone's kind of flipping them, everybody's wanting to pay premium above retail price. Now that elevates your brand, and then it makes your second piece easier to sell out. So that's one of the I guess a deeper thought into how we price and decide on quantity.
So you have special artists that take these well-known brands and you change them a little bit too. All right.
Yes, sometimes a lot.
Sometimes a lot. And I really like the way you do that. So you have to pay the artist and you have to pay the licensor too. So you're paying two people out of this.
That's right. That's right.
All right. So that gets a little trickier too, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It does. I think we worked out a pretty reasonable or fair system where there's actually 3 scenarios with us right now. The first is that we just work with the licensor. So that's very simple. We just pay one royalty fee percentage to the licensor, and that's it. Now, once we loop in an artist, now artists also have their original works. Sometimes we don't collaborate with the licensors; they just do their original work. But in the situations where we have a licensor and artists come together, we've already have a table of royalty structure that says, okay, if it's an original and a one-party IP, the percentage royalty is this much. For example, this is 10%. But if it's a co-IP, because we have to keep our retail price, accessible to consumers, we get the licensor and the artist to agree to taking half of each. So we pay, example, 5% to the licensor and 5% to the artist. So they both get equal cuts. So this is usually how we do. So there's a structure of either a single IP or a double IP. And in rare cases, we even have 3 collaborators, and then you have like 2 brands, 1 artist. So that gets a bit more difficult to plan out, but we usually tie this all down in the contractual stage before we even create products.
Okay. This double royalty, it's split royalty. You see the Michael Jordan on the back. That's the way that was done. I got a piece of it. Michael got I think you get the bigger piece, Michael, but we split the royalty. Okay, so, all right, thank you for explaining that. Sometimes people are a little confused. Okay, let's talk about the royalty rate that you're paying the licensor. It varies. I mean, sometimes these brands that you want to license are really, really popular, so they demand a higher royalty. Just like if I was an inventor, if I have something really hot, I may be able to leverage a higher royalty. How does that all work? And are you the negotiator with this? Are you the one that's kind of trying to get a better royalty, a lower royalty rate? Is it you? I mean, how does that all work too?
Yeah, I think you're right. There's so many different IP and licensors out there, and they usually have different degrees of the royalty rates. And some of the more established ones will be definitely more expensive, and they demand also a high MG upfront. And some licensors, maybe they're trying to get their brand out, so they'll be more willing to say, okay, we don't charge you an MG, just pay us when you sell products. So there's usually me and the licensing team, we get involved, we talk about the structure and the deals. But it's pretty standard though. It's usually an MG with a percentage of a royalty. But it gets more convoluted when we start talking about digital collectibles. That's like a whole different ballgame. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a minute, that whole world. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about finding the artist for a minute, because you're right, you change it. And sometimes you have to work with that licensor to say, look, we're going to change your brand a little bit. That's not easy. The first time I saw that was I think it was called Studio 54 with Disney, really changing Mickey Mouse to some of this really interesting artwork, and they agreed to it because those brands are pretty, like, those are brands they don't really want to touch, but they let the artists do some really creative stuff with it. How do you find those artists? Do you find them at trade shows, online? How do you find those good artists to really help you?
I think during the pandemic years where there was a lot less conventions and traveling, we find and source a lot of artists through online, where we go through DeviantArt. We go through the popular forums and we look at the Instagram, look at what they post, their works, and everybody was stuck at home, so they were just doing more artwork. So there was a lot of artwork to sift through. So we have like an in-house team of the entire creative team. I think was 50 to 60 people. Every week they'll just shortlist a couple of artists, and then we pick the ones that we feel works best.
Got it. Interesting. The world has gotten it's gotten easier in some ways, right? Because of Zoom and everything else. All right, let's talk about the digital world right at the moment. Okay, because you're doing something pretty unusual. You're bringing together the digital world and the physical world, right? And you're kind of bringing those together. How do you do that?
So one of the things that we strongly believe in is that the future is definitely digital, right? I mean, it's hard to imagine life without internet these days. So and I have four kids, right? And my kids spend way more time in the digital world than they do socializing out there. Like my experience is, I want to go out, have a drink, have a cup of wine, a glass of wine with my friends, and we want to like socialize in physical, kind of get to know people, hug people, and all that. But my kids, they're like, oh, just leave us alone. We just want to be in our Fortnites and our our Minecraft worlds, and they're just there. Like I think they spend way more time in the virtual world than the real world. So we knew that the future generation, they definitely going to spend more time in the digital world. And even then, we start to predict that the trends definitely will be that they will spend most of their time and also their resources on acquiring digital collectibles versus physical ones. So so that's why when we were thinking about, okay, how do we bridge this? Because toys is still a very traditional physical item that once you buy them, you unbox them, you put it on the shelf, and you kind of forget about it. So how do we extend the shelf life of that? So we decided that all our toys are embedded with the NFC chip. It's a way that once you get it, you put your mobile phone device near it, like 5 centimeters, it detects the chip and it authenticates and registers the products. That's the first key step. It makes people, okay, I want to know that I've paid money for a real original stuff. Okay. And after that, once they authenticate themselves, they go into this, what we call extended experience. So to give you an example, right? When we work with Sesame Street, if you bought an Elmo and you scan Elmo to register Elmo, it opens up a little Tamagotchi Elmo game where you got to feed Elmo snacks to keep him happy. The whole purpose is to make everybody happy, and you got to sustain the happiness by feeding Elmo good snacks. So you could feed him apples, bananas, and all. But if you want him to be super happy, you need to unlock special snacks like cookies. But to get cookies, you've got to purchase Cookie Monster and scan Cookie Monster. It unlocks the cookies, and then you can feed Elmo the cookies. And as you start to collect more and more of the Sesame Street characters, you form a family portrait. And this family portrait you can then share with your friends to say, hey, look, this is my collection journey. I've got all my happy family of characters, and they're all happy. And the happiness index is so high. So then there are little contests where these collectors start to compete and say who has the happiest collection. So this is where we try to bridge the gap between you collect something physical, but beyond that, we want to extend that enjoyment of that fandom of the IP, so they can interact with it through this digital mini game. That's what amazing. We did with that example.
Well, congratulations on everything and picking the winners and doing some amazing things. And I just want to thank you for sharing part of how that really works. And my audience loves licensing. They realize they're trying to come up with ideas to license out, but a large part of my audience is thinking about, if I'm a manufacturer, how do I license in? And you're doing a great job with that. So Thank you so much for this interview.
You're
If
welcome.
there's anything you could say or suggest at the end, or maybe paint the future, what are you looking at next? I mean, you're bridging the gap between the physical and the digital. Is there anything you're going beyond that you're thinking about that you could share? Anything new, really cutting?
Yeah, sure. So as I was talking about, from a physical to cross over to the digital world, and we realized that a lot of the old traditional licensing models may not work the same way, because with digital collectibles, it's not the same in the sense that, let's say for traditional toys, there's the usual manufacturing stage. You got to produce the physical stuff, and there's cost to it, and then there's a lot of logistics. You got to ship it to different countries, and there's FOB, there's all these terms, But when it's digital, none of that exists, because it's digital. You just put it on a platform and people buy it. There's no manufacturing of sorts. There's no factories that's got to be pharma certified. So it creates a different contract experience. And then they have smart contracts for NFTs, which is a different kind of contracts, because the Web 2, the Web 3 means that, simply put, the Web 3 folks now have ownership of the assets. They could own the product,
Yes.
and they could own the digital collectible, and then they could also, I guess, do stuff with it, right? And that means that they have to have a sort of a personal contract with the item they've just acquired. So that kind of changes the whole structure of the contractual work for the traditional stuff. And everyone's still trying to figure that out. There's no template. Every licensor we spoke to, they have a different terms. They have different royalty rates, and they have different expectations. So it's been exciting, but also a little frustrating to work that through right now.
So will there be a time where you won't do physical, but you'll do digital just by itself? That's happening too, isn't it?
Oh, I think we had this debate internally, but what we've come to believe as a group is that it's impossible for us to just, I guess, migrate 100% to just digital, because
Okay.
we feel that the whole purpose of it is that we believe in the word phygital. It's got to be a bit of physical, it's a bit of digital. And the reason is because that even to get to the digital world, you still need physical connections, right? You need a physical handphone, you need a modem, you still need to eat, even though you could spend a whole day in a virtual world, you still need to drink. So we believe that it won't just be 100%, and it has to be a good mixture of both.
Got it. Bryan, thank you so much for this interview. This is fantastic. It's very exciting. And I'm looking forward to maybe having you back next year to see what's going on. But thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you, Stephen. It's been a pleasure.